Mel Brooks, who said, "Tragedy is when I stub my toe. Humor is when you fall down a manhole cover and die."
Do you think being a middle-aged person is harder in Asia compared to Western economies?
It is true about the American isolated individualism. It's not emotionally really that great.
Do you feel the same way, like about doing one thing perfectly? Like, the Bruce Lee quote, like, I'm not scared of somebody who has 1,000 different kicks, but I'm scared of somebody who has one kick practice 1,000 million times. For me, I've also been somebody who's like jack of all. And my dad would always say, you're jack of all, master of none.
If you have your eyes open and you study with sincerity the true things in the space, you will soon learn more than the high expected, than the experts.
Could you talk about the literacy project? That's something that is keeping you up at night.
There's 700 million illiterate people in the world, and I think I have a handle on how to fix that. And if I don't fix that, then that's a lot of damage by through inactivity.
Today, on the Inner Scorecard, our guest is Dr. Thomas Veatch, a curious mind, an original thinker, and someone who I believe has lived many lives in one. From professor and humor theorist, tech startup CEO, plumber, and a literacy evangelist, traveling to India with nothing but a printout and a purpose. Tom is one of those rare people who breaks things down not to complicate, but to deeply understand and connect. Fun fact about him, at 64, he's also the kind of person who will call your dad father or pitaji in Hindi and call you brother by no matter what the age gap. In this episode, we dive into why humor happens when something both feels normal and wrong, his radical mission to spread phonetic literacy using the IPA alphabet, the joy and contradictions of being a polymath, how living in one of India's ashrams offers a better map for fulfillment. Welcome to today's episode of the Inner Scorecard with our guest, Dr. Thomas C. Veatch.
That's great, the Inner Scorecard.
And today we dive into the fascinating world of linguistics, humor, and personal reinvention. Tom is a polymath with a career spanning academia, technology, plumbing, and property management. He's renowned for his groundbreaking theory of humor, which explains why we laugh when things both seem normal and wrong at the same time. Tom is also passionate about phonetic literacy and has traveled extensively, including his multiple trips to India, which we'll go deeper in. So Tom is someone who's mastered the art of finding humor in life's contradictions. I have to ask, if humor is about perceiving something both as normal and wrong simultaneously, does that mean your plumbing work was the most hilarious career choice you've made?
Yeah, I guess you got to say that. I had a professor, Dutch guy, in Philly. I sent him a copy after I wrote the paper. He said, I read this whole book. It was not a book. It was 60 pages on humor. A Theory of Humor by Veatch, 1998. And at the very end of it, he said, I kept expecting you to break frame and for it to be funny. It was not funny. So that means academia was not funny. Theory of humor is not funny. But many people think that if you think about humor, you take the humor out of the humor. Because now you're thinking about it and you're in a different emotional space. And maybe you are. But not for me. Because if I think about something that I'm laughing at, if I understand the violation, right? What's wrong in this situation? I really think it's wrong. I still think it's wrong once I understand what my mind is, grabbed onto that's wrong about it. And I still think it's okay looking at it from a different angle. I understand it better, but for me, I don't lose the humor. That's me.
Do you think being a comic is one of the hardest things ever? Recently, as I've started getting into more creative spaces, I've realized that stand-up comedy is one of the hardest forms of creativity, not even entertainment. Because you have to put a lens to normal day-to-day life, and it has to be, as you said, wrong and right at the same time. Right. That is relatable, right, but it's hilarious because now that you put it, you just extract out that piece of information and you put a different perspective to it, it becomes funny. I think somebody famous said that life from far away is comedy and zoomed in is like tragedy.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's really close to Mel Brooks, who said, "Tragedy is when I stub my toe. Humor is when you fall down the manhole cover and die." So it's a dimension of distance. whether it's, you are being hurt is a bigger deal than someone else being hurt. But your sister being hurt might be closer than a random person you don't know. So there's a distance in how much you identify with whoever's being hurt. I thought the funniest thing was this joke. Why did the monkey fall out of the tree? Because it was dead. Which is like so not funny. But at that time, I thought it was the most funniest thing. For weeks, I would think about this and keep laughing and laughing and laughing. I thought there's something essential about this particular case. And it was that something bad happened to someone you didn't care that much about. Just a monkey. But nowadays, even dogs are human. So the death of it's no longer, how do we put it, a tolerable tragedy.
Right.
If even a dog dies, it's terrible. It's nothing but tragedy. At that time, even a monkey dying, you could laugh. So because of this distance thing, it's far away in some kind of emotional sense.
I had a really tough time finding introductions, like for you, and especially on your websites. It says introductions are so fraught. My Christian family members, I'm afraid to tell them I'm a Hindu. My Hindu friends, I'm afraid to tell them I'm an atheist. Who will support me if I say I have a guru? Then there's academia, linguist friends. I'm afraid to tell them I do humor theory. My humor theory friends, I have a hard time getting acceptance for working on bliss theory. My academic friends, I'm afraid to tell them I'm a plumber. My plumber friends, I'm afraid to tell them I'm an academic. Where does it stop?
Right. That's right. It doesn't ever stop.
So you're talking about like boxing people and, setting context. From what I've seen, setting context just gets you help to the next conversations faster, right? It's like if I talk to you about something which is not even very high level science, then I assume you know a lot of information and we can just catch up with a few words where your PhD is, what your master's is. It just helps us frame and then we can build on top of that. But there's an underlying problem with it if you use that in every conversation. Now,
because the context is always different.
Context is always different and you start assuming, oh, this person is from there and that's why this.
Right. And agar main hindi bolta hoon, to it has to be somebody who samajh mein aayega.
Exactly.
You
How do you manage with this? Like, how have you, because that's not certainly stopped you from exploring different careers and interests, but there is that kind of weirdness to it, which is totally relatable. Like if I go to my work and I tell them, oh, I'm starting a podcast, they'll try to box me.
What are you doing? Like Stanford professors are not supposed to go and do media interactions.
Right.
That's very rare.
Right.
What are you doing with
Cuff, Huberman. Yeah. So
right.
How do you get around it? Like, is this one of the principles that you have of being so individuals in your pursuit that it doesn't matter? There's not a lot of feedback that you're getting constantly that you might be doing something wrong and why are you doing your PhD?
I live in a very unconstrained world because I don't, my parents are gone. I have no kids. Tom, you do whatever you want. Nobody's going to say no to me. But all the steps I've made in my life, I've always had very strong reasons why that had to be the next thing I had to do. Like for some reason, I had to do this teaching area because that's obviously the right thing at this point. And then I'd have to do some, speech recognition, API products and libraries, and that had to be. And then I had to stop because, I always had good reasons. Becoming a plumber, I had good reasons to become a plumber. So but it looks like very random and very unconstrained and very unconventional, unhinged even. Yeah, unhinged. Yeah, that's true.
But you're also a people pleaser. I have certainly felt that way.
Yeah, that's true.
How there's a contradiction there, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, okay, once upon a time I got married. And my wife said we went to marital counseling, and the rabbi, because I'm not a Jew, but my wife was a Jewish girl, and I had, anyway, we got married by a rabbi, and she says, and he's gonna be a plumber. She was willing to work to support me through medical school, right?
Yeah.
So she was like, not just being, negative, but she didn't think that was the kind of thing that her husband ought to be doing. And the Rabbi Ted said, oh my God, that's a pretty good trade. It is the labor aristocracy, so I got some support. So there was like issues here and there, but pretty much I'm tough-minded and I think I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's the most important thing to do right now. For example, literacy.
Yeah.
Right now, that is the thing.
Right.
Because why? I'm going to change. There's 700 million illiterate people in the world. And I think I have a handle on how to fix that. And if I don't fix that, then that's a lot of, a damage through inactivity,
Yeah.
Every person I don't give this to, like I'm walking down the street in New Delhi, there's some guy. I'm walking this way. He's walking that way. I'm looking at him. He's small. He's dirty. He's very likely illiterate. That's the way they are. If they were literate, they would have a better job. They would be, doing better in life. They would not have been malnourished as children that made them small in the first place. The whole thing. So Do I want to interrupt him on his way and give him this thing, which he's going to say, meh, for the chance
Yeah.
that it might stick, that he might get it? Well, actually, if I don't, I condemn him and his family, his children, to generations of illiteracy, which they came from, because you don't let your kids not be literate. And so the power of, it's obvious that I have to do this.
Yeah. I see that time and again, and this is something I'm also trying to emulate from you is inner scorecard.
Yeah.
You have a solid set of values.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's not something that is fixed in stone. You're adapting to it, but then you're keeping at it. And it doesn't need to have social validation. If it's there, then probably there's a multiplier effect. But if it's not there, and if you believe that if it's in all the situations that you do, there is a societal validation, then maybe you're not really thinking for yourself, or you're not really thinking first principles on yourself. This is something I would like to do.
You're saying that if somebody is validating you, then your motivation is no longer your own?
Every step. I think at some points, yes, there, something that, for example, the literacy project, yes, a lot of people might say this is something you're doing great and how can we help you? But then you look into something which is molecular biology, they'd be like, whatever. Like, I don't think this is cool. You should do something else. Or, for example,
or the same thing, literacy. Here in America, everybody's literate.
Yeah.
And everybody, they've forgotten they have a mouth.
Right.
They're like drawings of phonetics of lips and tongues and what's going on in the mouth. And when you're making the sound, that's how you get the IPA. This is very complicated, Tom.
Yeah.
You need to put people in school for years to understand this stuff.
Right.
This is not going to work. You can't just talk to somebody and say blah, 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 and they're going to read something.
Yeah.
But actually, in India, the person that needs it, in 90 seconds, they write ha ha.
Yeah.
90 seconds.
Yeah.
This is the head. This is the voice. This is the breath.
Yeah.
The breath has a symbol. This is ha, right? And this is the mouth opening, and that's the voicing symbol with it, and that's ah. So we write ah, ah.
Yeah.
It's 90 seconds. They can read and write ha ha.
Right.
So the principle of literacy, you can give it so instantaneously. So, okay, what am I saying? That especially in America, but also in India, in educated classes, people think this is like elementary school stuff.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Tom, it's so boring. That nobody needs this. And nobody could get it from what you're giving them.
Right.
They have this idea of, first, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Second, you could never come up with anything because if it could ever have been done before, somebody would have done it before.
Yeah.
And why would we need you?
Right.
Anything new has this quality. And just the naysaying is infinite. My girlfriend, who I love, and she loves me. And yet she says, Tom, we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Is your learning then, or the project that you're taking on, coming from a place of fighting back or proving to them? Is that also some element to it?
Yeah, for sure. I had a big self-esteem issue when I was...
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get back is like, take me back, early days, were you always trying to have this multifaceted like interest in things and not just high level? I think you go deeper. You spend months in your, locked out den trying to figure things out.
In my head.
How did that happen early on? Because you were always very receptive, probably because of the way you've grown up in multiple countries. You're always receptive to ideas.
Yeah.
But then you would take certain ideas and work on them. So instead of just being this mold who can be, it is this clay that can be molded any which way, you would figure out, okay, this is interesting. I'm going to go after this. Is there certain traits in childhood that you can see this maps to as well?
First of all, you're talking about me a lot, and that's the temptation of ego.
Yeah.
I want to not go there. But anyway, you asked about my childhood, and yeah, I had some issues in childhood. Like when my parents got divorced when I was 10, I'm the second-born brother of a first-born sister, which is to say a bossy woman who's like this on me. And, we didn't have emotional intelligence in the family to regulate that, to have her protect me instead of crush me, this kind of thing. And so I developed a certain personality, which was kind of the opposite of the supervisor, controller, concrete-minded person. I'm a open, unsupervisable, exploring, non-deciding understander of how things might best be rather than how the conventions are. And those personality characteristics come in contradistinction to my big sister, who's the opposite. She's a supervisor. I'm an inventor. Could a supervisor get along with an inventor very well, do you think?
Possibly, but I don't think without an emotional intelligence far.
Right. And that's not, there's none of that in my family.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then when I was, how did I get exploratory? There is that. when I was in 6th grade, they thought about accelerating me.
Yeah. What does it mean to accelerate you?
Well, in 5th grade, we were in Okinawa, and they said, you can do as much as you want of the curriculum. The curriculum went through 6th grade. I did it all. So then we moved to California, and they're testing me, like, and I'm off the charts and this and that. And mom says, no, we're not going to send you to 7th grade. You're academically there, but no. And so they made a deal where I could go to the library anytime I wanted and just read anything. And at the end of the year, I couldn't find books that I hadn't read in the library. It was this, it was an elementary school library. And maybe there were 2nd grade books, but I had exhausted that library.
Yeah.
And my reading was, you might, like nowadays, it's very nonfiction. I want to know how the world is. But in those days, it was all fiction, fiction, fiction. I became a giant like fantasy and science fiction reader, everything Heinlein, Asimov.
Would you imagine that's how most people get into reading in the first place? It can't be the drab and...
Yes. If you're doing reading because somebody told you to, why would you ever read? And then you're not going to read much.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn much. For me, though, it was always a matter of, this is cool, I'm interested, let's read it. And it would be some like really trashy science fiction thing, but I was into it at the time. I was, 12, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And so it had that quality of interest involved in it.
Right.
It was really interest driven.
Sitting long durations of time focused on one single thing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I would just read. Mom would take me to the library, and we would get the maximum of books, and I'd take them home and I'd read them. Then 3 days later, because that was as soon as she could, twice a week we did this.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
But later, so it was all fiction through high school. And I would not say I was a deep thinker of any kind, although I did well in school. Like I really understand geometry and algebra, high school algebra and geometry. Those are clear. But then, I think it was when I just went into linguistics. I just had space to take everything.
Yeah.
Like linguistics is actually a very enormous field.
Right.
There's like child language development, so child psychology, and there's historical linguistics, so you're getting to read things on the birch bark manuscripts, and it's all linguistics.
Right.
So I just took a lot of linguistics, every kind of thing.
I think for me, one of the things that I've recently realized is I have this romantic fascination with one thing that you do really well, like the Bruce Lee code. Like I'm not scared of somebody who has 1,000 different kicks, but I'm scared of somebody who has one kick practice 1,000 million times. Right. For me, I've also been somebody who's like jack of all, and my dad would always say, "You're jack of all, master of none." It was always in a negative annotation there, and that I think that's something I realize now. I actually love it. Like that's who I am, and now that jack of all is getting more and more deeper in all those things,
right?
Because I have enough time.
Exactly.
I don't have 10-year career or 15-year career where I can really do something like which is conventional wisdom that you go to a master's or you do a PhD and you have 5 years to really hone in and then you start working. Do you feel the same way, like about doing one thing perfectly versus being all across the board and being seen as a, kind of a vagabond or
Yeah, I'm not sure how to put it, but I am definitely, like I'll have the tool in my hand and then I'll think of something and I won't know where the tool went.
Yeah.
And I dropped it vertically onto the ground from there and didn't hear it bounce and I was on to my next thing.
Right.
So there's these kind of unconscious transitions between what I'm doing and then some new thing that I'm doing. And that is very ADHD, shiny penny syndrome, and that's characteristic. So I got to teach myself, you got to put the tools away and then you're done.
Yeah.
It's not when you get the idea of the next thing to do, is you got to finish. But my own depth of exploration has, I don't acknowledge that moral position that whoever was telling you, oh, you jack of all trades. I don't accept that. If you have your eyes open,
right,
and you study with sincerity the true things in the space, you will soon learn more than the high expected than the experts.
Right.
Very soon you're like up with the experts. You ask really dumb questions, like 2 or 3 really dumb questions.
Yeah.
And then you're asking good questions.
Right.
And then you're asking questions that they don't know the answers to.
Right.
And then you're answering those questions.
Yeah.
And that's because you're like, it's something about authentic curiosity. Like if you're really open then you see what's really there.
Yeah.
And you're not bringing all kinds of side stuff, and you're not limited by people's what people were willing to teach you. And you're like, what is this? Like the humor theory.
Mm-hmm.
I just puzzled over that joke for hours and hours and hours. And I'm like, now here I am on my postdoc.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing English vowels, which was my dissertation. But I'm like, why did that monkey fall? Why is that so funny?
Yeah.
You know? And then the implication that something's wrong, everything's okay. Well, what does that explain? Does that explain why clowns are depressed and why Robin Williams killed himself?
Yeah.
Because there's right? He's very, very present to the moral violation, suffering, the pain, the something's wrong interpretations. Those are in his face like this. That's why he's so hilarious. Because he can make it in a social way with other people. He can make it all okay.
Yeah.
And so, wow. So, oh my God, it has this deep ability to explain profound and amazing things. And I just started accumulating. I would tell everybody about my humor theory. Yeah, I've got this humor theory. Let me tell you about it. And finally, my sister says, Tom, I've been listening to you tell me this humor theory so much. You got to write it down and get it out there because I can't listen to you anymore. Yeah. So people have a certain tolerance for my kind of repetitive, deepening study of some little thing. Yeah. And I don't really quite have a peer group for anything that I'm working on. Yeah. And maybe if I went to the right conference for one thing and a different conference for another thing, and sometimes I do that and find those people. But I just find that if you study with curiosity deeply, you become the expert very soon. Right. And don't be afraid that, oh my God. Like, in other words, if your IQ is 70, if you can learn how to sweep the street, God bless you, we'll give you a salary and you can do something good for the world. Yeah. And at least you're comfortable in that zone. But to tell people that are, curious and open and educating themselves that, no, you can't do somebody else's job. Yeah.
Is there an element of just enjoying the fact that you're enjoying it just makes it easier? So, for example, like switching like context, like table tennis. My brother just started playing. Right. And he's so into it and he's so fascinated by it. He's getting coaching. Yeah. He's getting coaching. He signed up first day coaching and he goes to different coaches and he's really good already. And I would often find these guitar players, or especially in creative fields and sports, which are outliers. And they have to have some differentiation, right? Like if you're going for the same path and you're like, okay, I'm going to do 10,000 hours, which I don't believe that, theory and stuff that you need to spend 10,000 hours. I think it's directionally correct. But somebody doing 11,000 hours doesn't mean that they can compete with somebody who's 10,000 hours. I think it really comes with with what intention you're going in. Are your parents forcing you to do it? Like, is your social status depending on you doing that versus it's just something on the side? Right. Exactly. You have nothing to lose. You're unhinged. Well, it's like this. I'll tell you a little story. So I have a guru. He died. Before he died, I said, Guruji, what should I study? Yeah. Because I'm got to go back to college, I stopped after 2 years and because I didn't know what to do. I'd studied all the Western classics and they told me. This was in India, right? This is in India. Yeah. So I was like trying to find the best, the most rightest, the most important, best thing to do with my life. That's what I was looking for. And the Western canon tells you nothing. It tells you Nietzsche, the revalue your values and figure out, create your own values. Or all this about become yourself. What is that supposed to mean? So I went to India. I found this guru. He was amazing. But I couldn't just live in this ashram forever. It was a blissful time. But I said to him, okay, what should I go back to study? I want to study something. What should I study? Because this was my problem. He says, study what interests you. Right. Marzi say, I'm like, I sit down, like that did not help. And, but looking back on it from now, the admonition to study what interests you is the most important admonition. Right. That's what you want. Because think of it this way. If you're doing something because other people want you to, the external validation, external encouragement, you're like a wadded paper ball flying through the air. Right. Or maybe you're like a piece of toilet paper pushing through the air. You might make a little progress if you really control all the elements. I gotta do what they want me to do. Yeah. Right. And kids are forced to do stuff by their parents who are like pushing them. But if you have interest, then all the wood is behind the arrow. Exactly. All of it. Yeah. And you're going where you're going with the full power of your capacity. Yeah. No matter where you're going to go so much faster and farther when you've got the wood behind the arrow. Right. And you're all aligned and you're like going because you're interested.
That's what interest gives you. It gives you this infinite intellectual power, which is completely gone when it's somebody else pushing you. So therefore, it does not matter what you're interested in. You can be interested in birch bark Sanskrit manuscripts.
I think this is the whole hoax of like having career counselors, where it's like, Tom has this score, they should be doing accountancy. If they're good in mathematics and geometry, they should be either an engineer or, going into accountancy. And maybe not. So that's where I think, but how do you find out what you're interested in? You're saying don't find out what you're interested in. Just do something that you're liking, you're currently enjoying.
Yeah, this is a deep question. Like, what is going to interest you? Everybody's constantly struggling with this question. Like, I have to find my passion. Because the pitch is always do what you're passionate about.
Right.
Well, and that's do what interests you is pretty close to that. But it's not like such a big deal. Oh, my passion. We're all sitting here. If I knew my passion, I would do that. What is my passion?
Right.
No, actually, you find your passion when you look around and you see there's some need. Like these illiterate people.
Yeah.
They're not even visible.
Yeah.
Like I talk to so many people and they're like, this is dumb. Why are you doing literacy? Everybody knows how to read. Well, not a billion people.
Right.
And you talk to one of those billion people, you say, here, do you read this?
Yeah.
And they hold the paper upside down. And you say, is this like a magic you don't even understand at all? And then you explain to them, you understand it now after I explain it, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my Hindi is good enough that I think I'm on the same page saying, did this actually make a difference? And they're like, yes, this really made a difference, Tom. That sense, I mean, it's not like you can see the need everywhere. Most people looking at a person who has the need can't see that they have the need.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's that kind of person. Those are the poor beggars. What can we do for them? Nothing. Therefore, let's ignore them.
Yeah.
This is the way the world treats. But if you see the need, then the heart draws and you're like, oh my God, I got to work on my, something for it. And it becomes a really motivating kind of world to live in.
But isn't that true that even for you, you have set up yourself to be so independent, like you're not financially dependent on people, so that you can have that clarity of thought? Because otherwise you're so involved. You're like, if you think about money, like there's loans and debts, right? But not even money, just conceptually, you're so indebted to people, your parents, like who are putting in so much effort, and you don't even look around. There's already, a vignette in front of your eyes that how can I help somebody else? I'm the one who needs help. I'm the one, who needs money. How can I think about helping others?
Right.
And I think this switches maybe later 30s when you have family and you have to give in time to others. You get older, your parents are getting older, you start thinking things. But early 20s, it's just me. I'm going to set up myself. Who cares about you? It's better if you're not doing good.
That's so interesting. It's very parallel, but okay. So you have the Indian system behind you. Shankaracharya said, no, it's not 3, it's 4. 4 goals, 4 stages. He said there's the 4th stage is sannyasi, is renunciation. And the 4th goal is moksha, is liberation. And those, you can do those anytime. But the traditional approach was, no, there's 3. First, there's brahmachari, which is called celibacy, but is actually childhood. And what are you doing? There's the goals and their phases.
Yeah.
So during the certain goal phase, you have that certain goal.
Yeah.
During brahmacharya, the first goal is what? Kama. You're searching for love because you're celibate. Why? Because, right? So you're looking for the girl you want the love. During what phase? When you're still celibate. Actually, this means during studentship. You're trying to become a better student, but you're looking for love, right? That's the goal. Second phase, grihastha. You are the householder. Well, what's the second goal? Artha.
Yeah.
What's artha? Artha is mostly money, financial development, but it also means purpose. The artha of a word is its meaning. The meaning of your life is like you've got this family, you're bringing the money in, you're helping them. You have to be money oriented to some degree to support your family. You got to get, bring it all together. You're the householder. You're making the housework. So artha is the goal of that phase. You got to keep the house together. Why? Because you've got you're doing the right thing for them.
Yeah.
The third one is establishment in the forest.
Yeah.
So vana means forest.
Yeah.
Sta is to be placed.
Placed.
Prasta, placed forward. It's kind of you're going to the forest. Well, we call that retirement. And we think of it, well, actually, after you've done all your money making, you don't need to make money anymore. You can do something else. You can retire. What's retirement all about? It's going to Antarctica. It's going to Europe. It's it's having vacation time. It's relaxing. It's having a cigar. It's chilling out. No. The third goal, which should go with the third phase, is dharma. Now, dharma is not profitable. You're doing something, serving the poor or doing something out there. You need to have the money in the bank so you can get the plane ticket to go to India to help, or do whatever. The improvement of the world is not likely to necessarily be profitable to you.
Right.
There may be, if you do a business, then you're selling things and those people want those things more than what they got. So it's helping them that you've done your business, definitely. But there's all this whole class of, nonprofits that people want to change the world, improve the world, do something good for them. Why are you here on this world if not to make the world a better place? That's what I'm here for. So therefore, the time after I made my money, I did my plumbing, I paid for that house, I became a landlord, I have rents coming in, I can feed myself macaroni and cheese with hot dogs, enough so that I can survive. And now I've got my time. I bought my time.
Right.
I was very urgently focused on being financially responsible so that I had health insurance when I'm 90 and my time is paid for. I can live. I don't have to spend a lot of money, but I have to be able to be free to do good things. So now that I'm, quote, retired, I'm in the forest, you might say. I'm not in the world because I don't have to make money, but my purpose is Dharma.
Right.
And what are we doing here? Let's do something good for this world. It might not be profitable, but I say that's the third phase of life. The third phase of life is not retirement for rest, retirement for death, retirement for, pampering yourself. No, it's retirement because you've got money in the bank to go do some good now. Do some good. Anyway, that's me. I'm all about, it's the Boy Scout creed. Leave it better than you found it.
No, I completely understand. I think for me also, financial independence has been about buying myself time to do all the crazies that I wanted to do.
Right.
And those crazies include some meaning, which is, I think meaning can only come from outside. In a sense, that validation of I'm helping the world be a better place.
Well, you're getting meaning right now as a householder.
Right.
You have your wife and your child.
Right.
And isn't that so meaningful?
Exactly.
And it is outside you. You're paying attention to the ones you must support.
And I do believe that people who are chasing the whole time, like they don't have those 4 phases. They were just born into that, second phase of just earning and becoming bigger. They have their understanding. The way they've modified their understanding is I'm doing this for my family and they need a lot. So their level of, for example, like, oh, my baby needs a huge car. They don't need a small car. I'm such a bad father. So I do feel there is some disillusionment there as well, wherein you just keep at it and you have some false goals behind your mind that I'm going to help them. It's not really helping them. It's probably spoiling them, but you have set them as your internal goals. I was actually thinking about this fact that, do you think being a middle-aged person is harder in Asia compared to Western economies? But as you get older, it's way tougher in Western economies compared to Asian economies. So that switch happens around that time of retirement, where now is the time to utilize all the social bank that you created, and you become more and more lonely in Western economies as you get older, because now that me getting bigger and more influential, for whom nobody really cares about you.
They're off to college.
And they're forming their own identity. They don't want to be really associated with you.
Right. I'm thinking about your dad, who's got, his daily walk goes through a park full of, like, there's the Brahmo Samaj, the ladies of the Brahmo Samaj. There's 30 ladies there. They're having a little meditation, talking, and they're talking about what they're going to do for good. They're all wearing white, and they're like, it's a society. He can sit there and become part of them, or, he's got a rich social world that's just on his walk all day long. He's surrounded by people, and he can be as involved in that or not, but he's fully supported. He has plenty of social contact and people that respect him and interested in him. And they'll say, come over and have lunch, or let's go have, whatever. It's very, it's a sociable place. America, it's not like that. America, you go on the street and there's nobody else on the street. It's like you got to go to a poor neighborhood to see the kids running in the street. That's where the kids run on the street. So you're alone. It is true about the American isolated individualism. It's not emotionally really that great. And especially in Seattle, where we're just very Norwegian. It's like it's harder to make friends. That's why I do find community. I got to have my community. I go to my city yoga on Fridays. Or it's nice, or I have to go to table tennis and I have all these people that I know. I walk into the room and people are like, come here, let's play, You'll do that to me.
Right.
It's great. It's the most amazing. And to not have that, 6 days and 22 hours of the week.
Right.
Okay, at least I have it a couple hours a week.
Yeah.
That's nice. So in the West, there's that kind of solitude. But you're saying that there's less solitude during your working years because you have family and they're dependent on you.
And your whole inner values are around the people. For example, if my whole inner value is like to earn more money and get more status in my work, that's where I am. And I'm getting that constant validation. As I rank up, people are like, hey, and you have a team, you feel it's working out. Now you leave all that system.
I see.
And
that validation structure.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Like in America, a lot of people work till it's not forced retirement at 60. And I think it makes sense for the system. But I have to say, I do feel bad. For example, in India growing up, if I see somebody old going around, you automatically assume they are somebody's grandparents. You don't call them by name. Never do you call anybody elder to you by name.
Right.
So you automatically assume not as a single node in a tree, but as a whole tree.
Right.
This is who this person is.
Yeah,
now,
beautiful.
And here it's like, hey, Tim.
It's you.
Yeah, it's
you.
you.
Did you have a mother?
Yeah.
As if, they never did.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
What advice would you have for like somebody growing up in America?
In America?
Go to India.
Go to India. Well, I think everybody should go to India. If you haven't spent 2 weeks in India before you die, you missed out. Because India is super stimulating and super social and super interesting,
Yeah.
And it's not an easy place. You might get, don't drink the wrong water for sure. But you can take care of yourself and have that experience, because India is where everybody wants to talk with you.
Right.
And every conversation is so meaningful.
Right.
And you're there to be, we emotionally synchronize to the people we're with. And in India, people want to talk to you. They really want to know what's going on and learn about you and find out what's significant in your life and share theirs. And that's so meaningful. And in America, it's like, you might threaten me with an emotionally significant interaction.
Yeah.
Because I've got my little categories and it's all this way.
Right.
People are really stuck here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So to be an American, I don't know, how can I give advice to Americans? That doesn't make sense. Americans are going to do what they want.
Yeah. Don't tell
do what you want. Study what interests you.
Don't tell me what to do. And we talked about this, and this is something I personally struggle with, is when I step out, I just want to meet people. I want to know what they're doing. I really want to sit with them. Eye contact, heart contact.
That's the great thing about you. You are.
And but when I get back home, I don't want to do with people I don't really, I'm like my family, like immediate family. I want to focus on myself.
There's you, your wife, and your hedgehog.
Yeah. And the bigger hedgehog now. And how do you balance that out? Like for yourself, stepping out, having all that social interaction and all that energy, but then going back in. One of my mentors told me this quote is, he sees the way he sees life is, when I close my eyes, I look deep within. I just want to know about me. But when I open my eyes, I ask the question, how can I be of service?
Beautiful.
So that's the two modes that a person believes in.
How can I be of service, and what is the first one? What am I?
Who am I? To figure myself out when I close my eyes.
Maharshi.
Yeah.
Right? He said, who am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
Meditate on this question. Who am I?
Right. So how do you balance that out? Like stepping out, and because a lot of your personal projects are really like, they need a lot of time and you need to pay a lot of attention and you can't step out. So it's like two balances, right? Like you want to do something for yourself, you want to come up with something, but then also you want to, you're a social animal.
I'm such a social animal. I really am. But I do find myself kind of stuck in a bushel basket. This is my world.
But a lot of the things you do is, I believe, is a very lonely path. As you said, like people don't really understand you. So, there's social interaction where it's like, hey, Tom, how's it going? Long time no see. But then there is, other side of conversation where you really start getting deeper and they're like, I don't really understand what you're saying.
Right.
I can't relate to what you're saying.
Even Liz,
And that happens quite a lot.
It took so many years to understand theory of humor. It's so simple. How, what's going on with that? And now this with the literacy. I taught literacy. I don't understand that. Doesn't make sense to me. We'll have to agree to disagree. God. Yeah. So I don't know. Just my own personal motivation is very much about connecting with other people. Like if I have a chance to spend 6 hours with you, and as opposed to do my homework, sorry, homework. I'll do that. And it makes me a good businessman in a sense, because I'm very customer orientated. If they need something, I'm there. The fact that they need it motivates me. But I have a little engine of curiosity back there, and sometimes it says, "Oh, look at that."
Yeah.
And I go, "Okay."
Yeah.
This morning I was, the Indian gesture language. We
Yeah.
call it the woggle.
In the nod.
It's not on the literacy track, but it got me. And I'm willing to go far enough to feel like I have a true insight that I can share with others. That's what I want to do. I'm not really that good at persuading others, but I want to understand the truth, the real actual truth there. And I want to share it. Get some insight, and I haven't written it down and put it on the web or something. I feel like, what was the point of that? But you asked at the beginning about kind of insecurity. And for most of my life, I'm going to say I was trying to prove that I had some contribution to make, by making an intellectual contribution. And now I know I have a contribution to make. I got these poor illiterate people.
Right.
Like, my God, I need to help them. So it's not an ego thing at all anymore. It's not like, oh, I've got to prove myself. No, it's like, I got to run. If you have an exponential growth curve, stochastic exponential, and it's going to go up and up and up. And suppose you create a little viral meme that goes out, and it might go and if it's viral, then it will go exponentially, right? And you want it to cover the whole entire world, right? And suppose it goes at such a rate that it will eventually, then the date at which it covers the last bit of the whole world, if you wait for 2 days here, it will be 2 days later there. Right? That's because the whole thing's going to move at that, right? If it's that viral, it's going to you're going to move the function of covering the world from here to here. And so that 3 months of me taking a vacation was 3 months that I stole from 1 billion people of their literacy. This is right. That's how the math works. And I think about that. I go, okay. I got to finish doing my taxes and do this.
Yeah. On the contrary, like to the earlier question on your advice to American people, I have seen in India, it's the opposite problem, wherein there is benefit to getting old in India because you have this social framework around you.
Right.
But the downside there has been that because the first 40, 50 years, they're intellectually not challenged. And that makes it tricky because then by the time they're retiring, they feel completely used up. And now, yes, I don't think there is negativity in the mind that, I'm alone, and there's not that kind of aspects of mental issues like, I'm so alone. And it's more about, okay, my kids and their kids should entertain us. There's nothing that I want to do. I would do some things that I did, like, the usual, but most of the time I'd be watching TV, sitting at home, just waiting it out. I think there is that aspect of technology not being there, but
hold on. So you're saying that first they were learning because they were in brahmachari and they were going to school. They were learning to become a banker. Then they were working their butts off and completely serving. They had their kids, they had their family, they were a cog in a system, and they had to lose all personal identity and just do what's needed so that the system worked. Their kids live, right? You have to make them live, right? After all. And then, and finally at the end, everybody's out and gone, and you've lost your identity
because there was no interest. There was nothing that you pursued outside.
Well, you couldn't.
You didn't have time.
Right.
And
so it was survival time. So you were serving, and now you're a worn out husk. And what are you going to do now?
And you're just passing time. And it's very much unlike what we have here, where there is, loneliness. But in there, they're just waiting it out. They're like, yeah, whatever. And most of them are very like culturally opinionated. This is how you think should be done. They're the elders and they have to educate the younger ones. But apart from that, there is no other identity and there is no other pursuit of interests.
Well, vanaprastha is to go to the forest, and what do you do in the forest? I mean, I guess the idea is that it's time to relax. I don't know. I think that when the world, like, okay, I got kicked out of my career.
Yeah.
So I went back, Muktananda said, do what interests you. I said, okay. Finally I said linguistics.
Yeah.
And I did linguistics. I did a PhD in undergrad linguistics. I did a PhD in linguistics. I had a postdoc in linguistics. Finally, after applying to every job in the English-speaking world for which I was remotely qualified, all 17, I was unable to find a job. There's not much demand over an expert in English vowels. And so I said, okay, I'll do something else. I became a modem salesman, and I became a software salesman. And then I had a one-man computer business. And then, after the internet bubble crashed, years later, I finally couldn't figure out how to make more money. And then I said, okay, I'll do plumbing. All this time, I have this kind of academic in me.
Yeah.
And it's in there. And it's like during the software development phase when I was doing Sprex, I was doing linguistic-related software. And I had, a curiosity there, energy there, doing stuff, writing things. I mean, I'm a programmer as much as a linguist, I guess. But, well, everybody should be a programmer. So I have a sense that I have intellectual contributions to make, right? And that started, when I got out of my postdoc, I was writing humor theory. And during my modem sales years, I was publishing humor theory. So I had a side hustle as an academic. I was thinking about academic things. And I have an intellectual kind of area that's just natural to me, which is the emotional system. Because I'm kind of ADHD. I'm kind of, autistic, a little bit Asperger's. I don't understand all this emotional thing. But I'm interested. What's going on? What is this? And so I've got all the tools of a linguist, which is to say a cognitive scientist, which is to say logic, the system of categories, how to figure out categories, how to put them together, how to think economically about what's the structure of a system that would do this. And these are powerful tools.
Yeah.
And when I study the emotional system, which for all those years after academics, before I retired, those 20 some years, things would come. Like I'm a plumber. I'm carrying a pipe across the job site. Bang goes somebody installing a metal stud to the concrete ceiling. Bang. And I jerk. I'm like, oh my God. Because it's painful. It's really loud.
Right.
And I take 3 more steps. It goes bang again. And I'm like, okay, I just have to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to suffer this.
Yeah.
So that made me available to experience it truly and not just be shaken by it.
Right.
And so then I observe. I'm observing because I'm a curious person. I'm observing. Bang. And I noticed that the physical jump in the body occurred before the experience of the bang.
Right. Is the anticipation.
No, it was not anticipating. The body, did it anticipate?
Yeah.
I think that there's a sort of a time delay between arrival in the motor system and arrival in consciousness.
Right.
So you think that it happened when you experienced that it happened, but actually your body has experienced it already.
Right.
Right. So this means the world is different from what we think it is.
Yeah.
The emotional system is fast and different from what we think it is.
Yeah.
Right. So there I am as a plumber trying to think about the cognitive science of emotion. Right. And I did this great humor theory, which has been my best work. But, anger, transcendental emotion, spiritually. Like I'm spending so many years reading Muktananda's books, and they gave me 30 years of good sleep. And that's my Achilles heel.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a curious guy, but actually the particular characteristic of me is apnea. So if you go to sleep and you don't breathe, then your oxygen level goes down.
Right.
And it goes down to the point where you're going to die because you're not breathing. So you're going to die. So then your system says, wake up, and up it raises so you breathe a little bit. And then does it come all the way up here? Like you're awake and breathing? No. It comes up a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
And then you don't breathe again. So your oxygen level is down like this. So you're hypoxic. So if you Google hypoxia and inflammation, there's an article that says the two sides of a same coin. That's the title of the article, hypoxia and inflammation. So inflammation is also very close to aging. It's suffering. You're sitting there like, my oxygen level is so poor while I'm sleeping that I'm actually having nightmares. And my whole life from age 14 forward, nightmares. People say, Tom, sweet dreams, sweet dreams, Tom. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Because I never have ever had a sweet dream. No. A few months ago, I had this dream where my uncle got a Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's cool. Like, and there was one other occasion I had a happy thing happen in my dream. So basically nothing. So I'm basically, because of hypoxia, I'm in this inflammatory, suffering, miserable state all the
Yeah.
time, and yet I'm an intellectual trying to understand what's going on. So I'm a deep and profound student of completely pointless and unnecessary suffering, if I may say that. That's my particular niche,
Mhm.
and that's why I got through humor theory. That's how I got to bliss theory.
Mhm.
And the linguistics was really the tools to think about this stuff.
Yeah.
And then literacy came out of that. But we could talk about anything. But if you go to the website and click on random,
Yeah.
then you'll
Yeah.
get one of 200 essays on random subjects. And you will see what
Yeah.
anybody will see what Nikhil is saying about how I'm unhinged. But I think I'd go deep enough to try to have something that I don't think other people have said.
Could you talk about the literacy project? That's something that has been keeping you up at night, making you travel to India, which we're very glad for. What is the gist of it? How can people help you out there?
Okay, so apparently it was might have been the Jews, the Phoenicians or somebody. In Egypt, they came up with this hieroglyphic system where the picture of the bird stood for the name of the bird. But then some Canaanites, that's what it was. The Canaanites left Egypt after certain labors. Perhaps they built the pyramids, I don't know. And they started using these symbols or something like these symbols for the first sound that they represented. The first sound of the word, like bird would draw bird for B, draw a cow for C. This kind of thing the Canaanites had. And then they came up with this basically consonantal writing system that then the Phoenicians had. And the Phoenicians used it especially for inventory, receipts, contracts. Like, this stuff is going on the boat to you, and
Accounting, right? Yeah.
Right, we're writing on it what it is, how many there were, and then it goes and the person can check it as well. And so they got the alphabetic principle, the sound principle, that the sound is what you want to communicate. And then later on they got vowels, and it branched everywhere else, and it went to Brahmi. For all the Indian scripts come from Brahmi. Originally, this concept is phonetic. It's about the sound. That's what it is. It's the sound. And it was the sound. If you take the ABC song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, if you reconstruct the pronunciation of those names, you get back to the, you get back to things that sound like, they're trying to communicate not names, but sounds. Right? Like, how do you get H?
Right.
H comes from aha, which becomes aha, which becomes aha. And then the great vowel shift and the length shifting, it becomes ah, because you lose the E at the end, and the vowel lengthens when you lose that E. So now instead of aha, you have ah. And then that goes the great vowel shift, the long vowel ah becomes A. So now we say H.
Yeah.
And this is how it used to be. Actually, they were trying to say a phonetic, they were trying to communicate the sound. And what we got now is the name. It's messed up. So now when people try to learn English reading, they're totally messed up. They're blocked in every direction they go. Whatever they say, it's going to be the wrong thing. They say H, A, H, A. How are you supposed to get from that to ha ha?
Yeah.
There's no H in H.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're talking about the sound, and then the name of the thing and the sound of the thing are very different. So it becomes really easy to communicate the idea of literacy when you're communicating the sounds of each letter. And when the sound of each letter, when every letter has a sound and every sound has a letter, one sound, one letter, when that principle is observed, then literacy is the most trivial thing in the world.
Right.
You say ha ha, boom. Like but in English, it's so messed up. My name, for example, is Veatch. Veatch is spelled V-E-A-T-C. You can't even fit them on your hand, T-C-H, right? So it's actually 3 sounds, V-E-Ch. That's it, no more. But why is it 6 letters? Because we got to confuse all the children. That's what you really have to do. And people ask you, I'm on the phone yesterday with the insurance. How do you spell that? Could you spell that again?
Yeah.
it's a disaster. The English spelling system is an obstacle to people learning. Okay? So the whole point of what I'm saying so far in this little answer to your question is that phonetics is what it's all about. You got to have the sounds, and you have to have a symbol for every sound, and then you have an easy time of reading and writing. Right. If you have one sound, one symbol, first of all, you're an expert in sounds. Since 8 months old, you've been going baba, mama, and trying to figure out exactly what to do to make all the sounds. You are an expert by age 9. So in teaching literacy, in teaching anything, you want to build on what people already know.
Right.
What they already know is their sound system. If you're just giving them labels to sounds they already know about, then it's trivial. It's almost, it's laughable. How is this complicated? But when what you teach them is the sound name instead of the sound, H for then every time they see an H, they have to go off in this incomprehensible direction, and they're blocked, and and it takes them to 5th grade, then they may or may not ever get the complexities of it all. So the point of learning literacy is to start with the sound system. So that's what we call it phonics. Maybe we don't need that much phonics. We need some phonics. But people have to get the idea and have to be solid in it. So here's the finding of when they first came up with the first phonetic alphabet. They were on this whole point. Phonetics is about teaching kids to read. And it was about 1848 or something. And they got enthusiastic about this in Waltham, Massachusetts, which is where Brandeis is at. And the principal in 1852, I guess, says, we've done a report. We've taken this up. We've applied it to all our students. In our schools. We've proven by repeated experiments that a child who, upon learning their letters at the very beginning, given the phonetic alphabet and being trained with a phonetic reader for 6 to 8 months, like half the year, maybe 2/3 of the first grade, then they transition to common spelling, common readers. Then by the end of the first year, they are ahead of the 4th and 5th graders. So, in other words, using the English spelling training system without having a very clear phonetic, I say alphabet, because when you have phonetic literacy, you have everything. You can write everything down. You can read anything that's written. You have a full, complete, stable, universal literacy system, but it's phonetic. And then from that, you can learn the English one, where there's a million exceptions, and you can get Veatch like that. So what I came up with was, this is all other people's knowledge. They have the International Phonetic Alphabet. It's not mine. It's been there for 100 years. But in 2002, I'm in Tamil Nadu, and my sister is studying in medical school at the Valor Christian Medical Center, epidemiology or some diseases, tropical diseases, something like this. I'm sitting there in a hotel. What am I going to do? She said, come, I'm here. Now she's in school. I'm bored. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm in a foreign country. I can learn their script at least, and maybe learn a little bit about their language. So Tamil, I just started learning Tamil. This word starts with this symbol, and I'm making the charts. I realized that they don't have distinctive voicing. And that's a complicated phrase for a non-linguist. But in other words, P and T and P and B are the same. They don't make the difference. And it's for both P and B. If we say P or B, they would say but. Some in-between thing. T and D, same. K and G, same. S and Z, same. They don't make a difference between the ones where there's voicing going on. This is vibrating during all the voices sounds, and it's not during it's not vibrating. So that difference of the voicing is not there in Tamil. That says that the consonant table, which says in phonetics, we go to school of phonetics. They say, okay, you're in phonetics phonology class. Here's the table. Go home and come back tomorrow. So I have to go home. All it makes sense, except you have to learn 3 letters. For English, it's not that hard. Come back. Now you know them all. The way we learned it is through a three-dimensional table. Every sound is made at a place. All the consonants have a place. So it's either at the lips or in the teeth or further back. Or pharyngeal. It has a place. Secondly, it also has a manner. What do you do at that place? Do you close and open it? Mm-hmm. Ma, 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 wa, 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 fa, fa, fa. You know, you can do any action in a place, and you can do at any place you can have an action. Does that make sense? I think I got that mixed up. In all the places you can do all the actions. So it's a table where place and action are independent dimensions. Mm-hmm. But then also at each place and each action, there are both voiced and voiceless versions. So ba and pa are both bilabial. They're both stops, but one is voiced, one is voiceless. So there's three dimensions. What I'm saying is that this discovery that camel does not have distinctive voicing meant that this three-dimensional table, which is incomprehensible. How do we draw a three-dimensional? You know, you have to go out of the page to get a three-dimensional table. It's not necessary. Mm-hmm. There's a simpler version. The idea of simpler then kicked in my head, and I said, is there simpler? Is there more simpler? Can we do something simpler than this simpler? Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah. Instead of having words like labial and velar and fricative, which come from Latin, and you have to learn them in graduate school, in linguistics at Stanford, then you can learn about these things. That's dumb. You can draw a picture of the lips, or the velum, the head, and what's inside the mouth, and put an arrow saying it's there, and draw a picture of what turbulence looks like in an airflow channel. And people go like this. They'll get the idea from the drawing. Mechanical drawing can tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? So that means that you can make this chart, even if it's three-dimensional, and give it to people who are not Stanford students doing linguistics with graduate school. They can be illiterates from anywhere. They have to be human beings.
Yeah.
They have to have a mouth. They have to be curious. Mm-hmm. Then is the arrow at the lips something going to be hard for any New Guinean or Malian to understand? No, everybody has bows and arrows in the whole wide world. Now, at least. And they lost them in Australia, but then they got them again. So, mechanical drawings for the labels for the consonant and vowel charts was my idea. But that changes the scope of the phonetic alphabet from this obscure scientific tool for linguists into the doorway for everybody in the world who has a mouth, is a human, and is curious. And what's the cost? Now, you give them a piece of paper. Maybe you give them 2 words about how this is head, voice, breath, blah, blah. Maybe not. And they can study it, and they can figure out that each one of these little squiggles, this is what you do, and that's how we write it. Mm-hmm. Now, then at the cost of a piece of paper, maybe a few seconds, you can potentially give people basic literacy in some kind of literacy. And with that, if their language is unwritten, they can write it. There's no such thing as an unwritten language anymore. If you're trying to learn English, like especially in India, 80% of the signs are both in Calcutta and Delhi. They're all English. Mm-hmm. You'd think in India it'd be all Indian scripts.
Yeah.
20% Devanagari, almost zero Urdu.
Right.
80% English. Right? That means that if you're a taxi driver and you can't read the English letters, you don't know how to get to where you're going. Right. You don't know that you got there. You're an incompetent taxi driver. And so I give the piece of paper with the IPA on it to the taxi driver, and they hold it upside down.
Yeah.
It's like, this is impossible. But if they have the International Phonetic Alphabet, there's so much of English that already covers. Mm-hmm. It's about 85%. You do a couple easy rules. It's 57% with IPA alone, and then you get to things like MM goes to M. If you realize you don't need double letters, they write them, but you don't have to have them. Then you can see hammer as hammer with one M. This kind of rules. Then you get up to 85%. So then with, a few hours to learn IPA, and then a little bit of extra for some common standard English rules, then you get 85% of the English alphabet that you see on the street, which is 80% of what you see. So if you can deliver that to people at the cost of a piece of paper and a little hint about how you interpret it, that's going to change every taxi driver from incompetence to valuable.
So the main beneficiaries are, would you say, the people whose languages are not documented, then also people who are just trying to learn any language, like English specifically?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say that the unwritten languages are a mean anything, because there's so many, yes, but the number of people that speak them is very few. Like there's plenty of languages in Nepal that have under 1,000 speakers.
Right.
So yeah, it's good for them. But I looked for unwritten languages that I could help them with this. In Uttarakhand, I went up to the farthest, up to the Ringi village past Jyotirmat, and we couldn't find anybody that speaks an unwritten language. I mean, Garhwali it's actually written.
And how can people help? Like, what support do you need here?
Okay, so my job is to create good materials and then to teach teachers who can teach teachers. So, so encourage me, say, Tom, that's a good idea, go do it. You know, work on those materials. Tell me, oh, this is not working. This is not clear enough. Like if you look at you go to tomveatch.com/read, that's where all the stuff is. So go through that and give me feedback. If you give me feedback, and this is not only this isn't perfect, but here's a better way to do it, then it can get better. I would like feedback. And then I want teachers. Try to learn how to teach that stuff. If you can teach the IPA to people, which is not hard, pick it up very quickly, then that's how it becomes viral and conquers the world.
Yeah.
First, I got to do a teacher teaching video in English.
Yeah.
Then everybody's got to, English speakers who might also speak other languages can learn how to teach IPA from that. Of course, they can learn it from the IPA website too. And then they can teach other people in other languages, and then it can just go from there. My point is that it has to become a viral thing.
Yeah.
So help me find a way to make it viral. It has to be easy, attractive, and acceptable. It has to work effectively. If it's wrong and you don't beat me on the head for it, then you didn't do enough for me.
Right.
Yeah. On the other hand, if it's right, and it's going, then help it go.
Absolutely.
Learn how to teach it, and then teach it to somebody. Especially if you're traveling to any foreign country which has illiteracy, go there and share it. Print that out, copy it, give it to people, explain it to them. It didn't take you long to learn how to explain it to them.
Right.
And now you're going to change their lives. Every tourist who doesn't want to do some good for the people that he's visiting, come on, do something. And it might be a minority of the people in that country.
Yeah.
And it might be nobody. Like, I don't think there's any illiterate people in Singapore. And it's very hard to find illiterate people in the United States. Maybe I need to be going to the prisons. Maybe the homeless encampments. I don't know. Who actually doesn't know their letters? It seems that everybody knows their letters in English or in America. So this is like, especially like, Equatorial Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Indonesia, India, Nepal, probably Burma, Muslim areas, especially, but poor people everywhere. Actually, in India, I find that the kids are all going to school. So it's their mothers.
Right.
The mothers and big sisters, they don't know the letters. The little kids, they do. So the question is how to get it. I mean, I have never been successful in having something that I make go out and become a viral meme to conquer the world. So I could, if you can help me make that happen, help me, please. But it's not me you're helping. It's the world.
So where can people find you?
tomveatch.com. My name. You got to spell it. Remember, Veatch. Sorry.
I'll put that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about learning languages? That's something that you have really excelled at. Is your Hindi is almost perfect, getting better.
Thank you.
Sanskrit's getting better.
It is getting better. Well, I can say some things about language learning, which is first learn the IPA. And I mean that in the sense of even before your native language, I wish you could learn the IPA first. That's a little nonsensical. You can't quite, but certainly before reading This result in Waltham, Massachusetts says that you should learn the phonetic alphabet before first grade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the first thing. Once you learn the phonetic alphabet, you are stable. You know what's going on. You know what reading and writing is all about, and you know it's all about figuring out that this like arbitrary spelling of whatever is pronounced like this. You write it down in the phonetic alphabet. So it lets you learn even the writing of your own language, right? And you need it first so that you can learn the writing of your own language, so that you can learn to write your own language and be able to say it, which is what you get from the phonetic alphabet.
Right.
So, so it needs to go to a group of people that I want to reach out to are the teachers in India who are teaching in mostly the government schools. And there's this class of graduate schools in India called the Diet. The Diet is the District Institute of Educator Training. And the Diet is where you go get a master's degree in teaching, and then you go teach at the government school in the tribal areas, in the mountains, wherever. And you're trying to bring wider civilization to the benighted masses. But they need the phonetic alphabet.
Right.
Because they're speaking to kids that don't speak their language. They're Garhwalis or they're, Kumaunis or whatever.
Yeah.
And the teachers come in Hindi only.
Right.
They claim to not know the local languages. How are you going to teach kids that don't speak your language? It's like the American white teachers in West Philadelphia teaching the African-American kids. There's a lot of
disconnect,
impedance mismatch, But if you have the phonetic alphabet, then you can say, what you said was this. And you write down exactly and correctly what they say. And they know it, and they can read it, and they see you got it, and you got it. And you can say, we say it this way. And you write it that, also in the phonetic alphabet. And they understand, this is a different dialect we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I can say that too.
Right.
Because as a human being, I have a mouth. And I know the phonetic alphabet, so I can say every sound. So I can say that too. So now you're not blocked by saying, you don't speak the right language and might as well, if I can't get through to you, then forget you and might as well go home to the village, which is what's happening. There's a high dropout rate in all kinds of places, like especially West Philly, but a lot of, ghettos and a lot of remote corners of the world where the teachers are not speaking the same language as the students. So both those peoples, the teachers and the students, need first to learn the IPA. Then they can at least talk about what their differences are, learn about each other enough so they can, the teachers need to teach the students, that's their job, but the students need to teach the teachers so the teachers can communicate with them. Because they come in and they claim to not know the language of the students. How's this going to work? So,
and apart from IPA, like you've mastered a lot of languages. What's the secret? Is it just getting yourself exposed to that culture? Is it reading a lot?
I think it's reading. From me being a reader, like here we are on a podcast, maybe this is going to come to people in the form of video. But you can learn a little bit, a paragraph or two from a video, but you can read a paragraph in 30 seconds in a book and learn just as much. So you can spend a lot of time watching a lot of video and gleaning a little bit out of it. But if you read, you get the distilled essence of the best way to explain that idea in the words on the page, which is what people make when they write.
So are you like reading with a dictionary, like trying to...
If you want to learn a language, you do have to get your notebook, every time you see a new word, you got to write it down, go look it up, put it in there.
Right.
Each word has to have its dictionary entry. And it's a labor. You can't just, for example, I really like Korean historical dramas and Russian historical dramas. And I watch a lot of that on Netflix. I don't think I've really learned
anything. No.
Hardly anything. There's a few very archaic words for imperator, or gospodin or some, there's how do I put it? These are deferential words of address to people of higher status, the king, the emperor, the whatever. And you might learn, they say those words enough that I get them, but I basically don't know any Korean. I basically don't know any Russian. Sitting and listening to the content does not help you. You have to sit with a piece of paper and a dictionary and write that, pause when you hear that. And write it down and then look it up and then write down the meaning and then it's there. And you have to review it. You have to do the 6 cycles. Write it down, then 15 minutes later review it, then an hour later review it, and then tomorrow review it, next week review it. Then it's really in your head. But if you just hear it and you're thinking that you're going to get it from the context.
So just having a large enough vocabulary that would help you.
Learn every part of it, you know.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I can say this because I thought that I could be like the Thai infant that I was. You know, when I was 8 months old, we moved to Thailand, right? And my mom was teaching at the American school, and housekeepers were my caregivers. And my first words were Thai. And my mother said, "Oh my God, he's going to be retarded. We have to speak English." So I learned Thai from scratch. Then I learned English from scratch. Then I went to America, forgot my Thai. Then I came back from America after summer vacation, had to learn Thai again. And then, you know, forgot my English. Then went moved away to Okinawa finally, forgot my Thai, learned English again. So I had to learn from scratch language after language as an infant. By the age of 4, I'd done it 3 or 4 times. And so my opinion was, please God, make me not have to learn another language from scratch. And I didn't after that. So, you know, and now as an adult, I think, well, I should be able to do that now. Why can't I just sit in a place and absorb? Like osmosis ought to be able to do it. But it doesn't happen. It does not happen. I just went to Thailand and I went to Bengal and I did learn the script. In 10 days, you can learn the script, you know, and I mean, distracted by every girlfriend activities and everything. You can learn the script, and I could read the first syllable of any sign as we're driving on the way to the airport home. You know, both in Bengal and in Thailand. So Bengal was completely new, but Thai was my first language. But I'd never got literate in Thai. So learning the Thai script was new. But I didn't retain any. Nitnoy was the only word I remembered after I heard it in Thailand that I knew it before. One word. So it's pointless. You got to sit with your books and you got to read the grammar and you got to do the homework of learning the language. But if you do that, you can do it very quickly. And if you do it on top of the phonetic alphabet, then you can say everything correctly. And like my Hindi comes from a lot of study. I did many years. I did first year in graduate school, second year in graduate school, intensive summer Hindi at UW. Then a full year, full-time, 4 hours a day, intensive Hindi in Delhi. And then I lived in an ashram full of people that I was talking to at nighttime. You know, I have excellent home Hindi. You know, if I'm talking to people at home about home stuff, it's good.
No, we can switch to Hindi. I think तुम्हारी हिंदी बहुत ही बढ़िया है. तुम्हारा इंडिया का एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था? I think
बहुत प्रेम से.
तुम्हारा जैसे एक्सपीरियंस बहुत ही कम लोगों का रहा है. आश्रम में रहना. मैं अपने घर में जब बताता हूँ, they are very surprised कि for a foreigner to come in, generally foreigners, you know.
आश्रम में रहना कि हिंदी में बोलना.
आश्रम में रहना और फिर वहाँ से हिंदी सीख लेना 1 साल में. और इतनी अच्छी हिंदी सीख लेना कि तुम मेरे दादा दादी से बैठ के तुम गप्पे मार लेते हो. और कितनी बार तो ऐसा होता है कि किसी का नाम आता है, मेरे किसी दोस्त का नाम, तुम उसका नाम का संधि विच्छेद करके तुम बता सकते हो कि इसका मतलब क्या है. And I take the names for the face of it कि हाँ ये इसका नाम है अभिषेक, and you'll figure out कि क्यों है ये नाम. So
that's true. Well, that's because I'm suffering always. So therefore I had to find a guru who could give me a little inner peace. And so I lived in the ashram and I did the chanting, and we have all the Guru Gita and all the, you know, Upanishad Matra and all this kind of Sanskriti is, you know, I'm chanting this stuff so I know these words so that, you know, and when I learn, I translate. See, my Hindi is itni buri, I can do a little bit. Magar कोशिश करता हूँ. तो मेरी हिंदी तो नहीं संस्कृत में बहुत सारे मंत्र यंत्र, you know, they have the chants and the long chants, you know, and from this I have a lot of deep, like from age 20 I've been exposed to lots of Sanskrit, and all those words are in there. And so when somebody comes up to me with a name, I know the meaning of the parts.
Yeah, because for people of my age, Sanskrit is an archaic language already. You would only
Yeah, Bulga. So
30% or less than that would study Sanskrit
Yep.
in high school, and then you would just study to pass the exam.
bus.
You can write 2 sentences. Yes, that makes sense. You
Oh
can
my God.
pass.
I'm on a, this is okay. Language learning has two purposes, and one is pointless, but it is standard. The standard purpose is you want to be able to talk about talking about it.
Yeah.
We want you to study enough to talk about the grammar. Yeah. I had a great professor at the University of Washington, Michael Shapiro. The professors there presently are all his students. And he was exactly the perfect exponent of Panini. Panini, who had you memorize the Shiva Sutras, and then you only have 4,000 more verses to memorize.
Yeah.
Right? And then after you've memorized them, then you have to work on the commentaries, which explain all the abbreviations. And then there's 2 sets of 4,000 verses that you have to further memorize. Then you need to then the task is to take a piece of the Bhagavad Gita and to apply the rules and figure it out and remove the sandhi and take out the parts. And then you have to look up the parts and then you put them back together so you know the meaning of the words. And then you write. And then you have alternative translations. And then you've done your job as a Sanskrit student. It's extremely kind of intellectual, and you could write a program to do it, and they do. This is very different from language learning. Language is a spoken skill that we do spontaneously in interaction with each other. And like when I went from Penn first year Hindi to University of Washington second year Hindi, I went from learning how to speak Hindi to learning how to talk about Hindi grammar.
Yeah.
So it was
बहुत मुश्किल.
Yeah, well, it was mushkil ki baat ye. Yes, it was mushkil.
And how old were you when you were doing this?
Oh, tab tha 22.
22. In India. This was 85, right?
Maybe 26.
Huh. Tumhari
Hindi words are really hard.
jawani ke din.
You know the Hindi word for 63 is
63.
tirsat. Tirsat.
Yeah. 63, yeah.
Tirsat.
I don't even know. मेरे को 30 के
Yeah,
आगे
right?
30 के बाद
Oh
मैं
my
इंग्लिश में
God.
कर लेता हूँ.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well,
29, 30, 31, 32, 33 चलता है मेरा.
yeah, every year you learn a new one more for your age.
Yeah. And in my house they speak Punjabi. It's completely different.
Dusri.
They're so lazy. Punjabi is like very wavy language, and we just skip over things. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, the numbering system especially, okay, there's a transition going on right now in India. They've decided, we're going English,
Yes.
and it used to be the government schools are all Devanagari.
Mhm.
You want to go to, if we're going to pay for you to go to school, then you're going to learn the religious language, the religious school, the religious everything. And so you're learning Devanagari. So the taxi drivers come out and they know Devanagari, which is 20% of the signs, and they're helpless.
Mhm.
And they're like completely blocked. They didn't get 5 minutes exposure to maybe they got the ABC song.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also Bollywood.
Maybe.
songs, Yeah.
Bollywood.
Yeah.
Well, now, okay, this is what I got for you. I went to Haridwar.
Hmm.
I went to the ashram, Gurudev's there, and I'm like, he says, that's great, do that. I said, can I do some seva for you? He said, do what you're doing. That's amazing. With literacy. I said, great. Okay, I got to make more copies. So I'm going down the Sannyas Marg and there's ashrams all up and down.
Mhm.
And it's just this little lane. And suddenly I'm giving the literacy instrument to these like laborers that bringing sand into the job site. I'm like, here, you got to learn to read. Here, do you know how to? No, I give it to them upside down. That's the diagnostic. And they're like, oh, whatever. I like turn it around. Okay, then I explain, and then the boss comes out yelling, "Why are you wasting you're wasting my time? You're supposed to be working." So it's a sweet story. Then I'm walking along a little more, and immediately there's this. They're having lunch.
Yeah.
There's 30 sannyasis in orange with dreadlocks or whatever, sitting on the curb, and somebody's coming down with a bowl with a bucket of rice, and he's giving them little plates of rice, and he's feeding everybody. And they're looking at me because I had just given this little gift to the people down the road. They're like, "What about us? Don't we get a gift?"
Yes.
And I'm like, "Okay, do you want it? Do you want it? This is lippy hai lippy chahiye." And they're like, "Gee," And I'm like, obviously it's Roman. It's like Roman. The International Phonetic Alphabet is very close to the Roman alphabet.
Mhm.
So it's kind of gets you towards English. It's not English because it's one sound, one language, or one letter. English is not one sound, one letter, but it gets you close. So I'm like, do you want this? And they're like, yeah. No. So the fifth person said no.
Huh.
And out of 35 said no.
Huh.
So this is what you really think of as the Devanagari nationalists.
Right.
The sannyasis are Sanskrit-oriented, liturgy-oriented. They're doing the Bhagavad Gita and every ancient thing, and they got it in Devanagari. They value the script of the gods. Deva is the god. Nagari is the city of the gods. So the social value of that script is super high, is the most high in this group of people, but 25 out of 30 wanted the English alphabet. So if you think Devanagari nationalism is winning, no, it's down. And everybody wants to learn English. They really do. They actually want it. I think, I mean, maybe they just wanted whatever the Angrezi is giving out. But I wanted that too, sure. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why I said that. The English is taken over. People really
For sure.
And so the government schools are starting to teach the English.
Yeah.
And, and they're basically, therefore, putting this enormous obstacle of English spelling in front of every unfortunate Indian child, which if they follow the people in Waltham, Massachusetts, teach them phonetic first, give them 6 months of a phonetic reader, they're extremely solidly grounded in a phonetic literacy, which can cover anything, any utterance in any language by themselves or others. It's a full form of literacy. And then give them common reading, common spelling, and then in 1 year, at the end of the first year, they're fourth graders.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty cool.
So that's I hope that's true. I mean, that's the finding of that.
Yeah.
But that's an old finding. It was a different version of the phonetic alphabet. We don't know. We got to prove it.
Yeah.
So I need help. I need help with the experiments. I need teachers to teach. Those teachers should test before and test after, so that the teaching made a difference. Right. If it didn't make a difference, then we're smoking dope. I need to prove it. So I haven't proven it yet. I believe it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you give it to these sannyasis or to that shoe repairman. He is so grateful. I mean, those ladies in the red light district, they made me cry.
Yeah.
Really.
No, I wish you the best of luck for this. I think this is probably going to make a difference, at least in your life, and hopefully others. And I really appreciate you're traveling to my home country and helping them get literate. So yeah, we owe big time to you. So thank you, Tom.
No, well, you guys, everybody that hears this, like my goal in life is for everybody, for my people to be successful and happy. And if you're in the range of my voice, you're my people.
Right.
And for you to be successful and happy is also for you to give something to other people. And if you capture this and it can teach others, teach your kids before they go to school that they can do the phonetic alphabet. They'll be fourth graders in the first 4 months. If you can, every time you're a tourist in any foreign land, keep your eyes open, have some copies with you. Give out a pencil and a little notebook, 25 cents worth of materials so they can practice on something. Help them a little bit. If you're climbing Mount Everest, there needs to be no illiterate people on the path to Mount Everest. At least that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. I hope this left you with a few good questions, perhaps a few laughs, and definitely a reminder to keep following your curiosity wherever it takes you. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one.